A strange spiralling white light was spotted in the early morning sky over Sydney, with even sceptical witnesses wondering if it was a UFO.
They were last seen on the beach with a tall man, and that's the best description police have ever had of him.
More than 17 years after Harold Holt disappeared into raging surf at Cheviot Beach, his widow has finally revealed his last romantic words.
Shocking, terrifying, mesmerising. That's the way a number of Australians have described their alleged encounter with the Yowie.
It's time for the Weird Crap in Australia podcast. Welcome to this week's episode of Weird Crap in Australia. I'm your host, Matthew Soul, and joining me today is co-host Holly Hunt.
G'day.
I suppose we should say g'day. How's it going? This is Australia. Very, very ochre. What have you been up to this week, Holly?
Not much. Researching stuff.
Like UFO type stuff?
I guess.
Before we get into the story, well, maybe we should just jump straight into it. We're talking about one of probably the most high-profile UFO abduction cases in Australia. It's very interesting. What are we talking about today?
We are talking about the disappearance of Fred Valentich.
Now, I don't know if it was the same for you when you were a kid, but I definitely remember watching a lot of X-Files when I was a kid. There was also things like Independence Day were very popular in the 1990s. I was absolutely terrified of aliens and UFOs when I was a kid. Like, it was a legitimate fear of mine. Was it the same for you?
Yeah, but mine were more literary than TV, so...
What do you mean by literary?
The Animorphs, the Yerks.
Oh, right, the brain slugs getting in your ear?
The brain slugs.
Yeah, see, I was more afraid of the genuine UFO stuff, like the saucers coming down and abducting you and things like that. I ended up seeing a film when I was too young called Fire in the Sky, which is a very interesting abduction case in America, where a couple of lumberjacks, one of them was abducted and he was later dropped off about a week later. And yeah, the particular abduction scene in that movie is probably one of the most frightening abduction scenes I've ever watched in movie history. And I'd recommend everyone check that out. That one's called Fire in the Sky. But Australia has a couple of interesting UFO abduction cases. We're going to talk about this one. We're going to talk about how... We'll talk about the surface area of the story, the more, popularized, interesting version. And then we're going to debunk the shit out of it, because that is something that I do in order not to be afraid of UFO abductions. So, Holly, you want to take us through the disappearance?
All right. Well, on the 21st of October, 1978, Fred Valentich was flying out over the Bass Strait in a Cessna 182L light aircraft. He was on a routine training flight, which was a 235-kilometre round trip.
What's that in...
125 miles.
100, yep. We got to remember our American listeners.
125 miles, 235 Ks. Round trip, he had more than enough fuel for an 800-kilometre trip. Remember that, it might come important later. He had 150 hours of flight experience, but he was not allowed to fly in abnormal meteorological conditions, meaning that if he went in a cloud, he was in trouble.
Really?
Yeah, he was a Class 4 license.
So I would imagine that flying through a cloud is not that difficult. So we're not talking about the world's best pilot here.
No, we're not. We're talking about someone who's still learning. He was rejected from the Royal Australian Air Force twice. He was denied a commercial license 3 times.
A commercial license. So that means he's not
flying a jumbo.
Yeah, flying a big jumbo jet. So, you're talking about your 747s, your big Qantas people movers,
people
basically.
Carries, yeah. So all he was really allowed to fly was those little whirly biplanes that you see flying up and down the...
And that's what the Cessna 182 light aircraft was. It was one of those little buzz boxes.
Yeah.
So you're talking about... I think they can carry 6 people, or is this just a little two-person?
It's a 2-person one.
Yeah, just a little 2-person, nearly personal aircraft.
And a good bit of information about Valentich that you might want to remember again later is that he was a very, very thorough UFO enthusiast.
And there it is. See, that's always the problem with these things. So...
Hang on. There's a little bit more. His father said he was paranoid of UFO attacks.
Yeah. See, this is one of the things that happened to me when I was a teenager. Like, people ask me, why am I a skeptic? And one of the reasons that I wanted to produce a show with you is because I want to, present both sides of the argument. I don't think there are enough skeptics in the world, but these stories are also really fun. Like, even if they're not true, they're still really, really fun to talk about. But the problem is that the more you look into these stories, and that includes the Fire in the Sky story, which last podcast on the left, they did a whole episode on it, a very thorough episode. So you should go check out last podcast on the left concerning the Fire in the Sky story. He was also a UFO enthusiast. He also frequently discussed UFO abductions and attacks and so on and so forth with his brother. And then he got abducted. You know what I mean?
It's never before. It's always after.
Like, some people who talk about UFOs and aliens in the fourth dimensional speak, these are beings from a different dimension and they're trying to move into our dimension in order to procreate with humans so that they have a more stable position in our reality, so that they can get to our reality a lot easier, or, they have that waypoint between the two dimensions. Those people who ascribe to that theory like to say, well, the people who see UFOs are the ones who really want it because there's some sort of psychic link between dimensions, right?
Or they're just thinking about it so hard they make it up.
And that's the thing about it is, like, most people who really, really want something will find any little piece of evidence in order to justify their position. And Valentich may have been one of those sort of people.
All right, so a quick rundown of the disappearance itself. We will have an audio clip for you to listen to later on of the transmission, but so starting at 7:06, Valentich radioed the Melbourne flight service that he was being followed by a UFO. It was 100 feet above him. Keeping pace with him, he was flying at about 500-600 k's an hour, so it's moving pretty fast. He described the aircraft as, quote, toying with him, flying
What does that mean?
Flying in close, flying off, flying in close, flying off.
So what? The UFO's like, hey, how are you? Hey, what's going on? Hey, woo.
Yeah, like that really annoying bug from Zelda, that one.
Oh, yeah.
Look at me. Oh,
God, what was that thing's name?
I don't know, Spark or something.
No, it wasn't Spark. It was a fairy, and I can't remember its name. But when, in the original Zelda Ocarina of Time, you would walk around and it'd go, like, it'd want to talk to you, it'd give you tips throughout the game, and it'd turn around and go, hey, listen, hey, listen, hey, listen.
Dart at your face if you weren't paying attention.
Yeah, exactly. It'd fly around in your face. So that's what this UFO was doing. Maybe it was just like, we're talking about like a couple of little aliens. They want to ask for directions, and the wife is telling the husband alien,
one keeps yanking
to go
the
get
steering
directions
wheel when it gets close or something. I don't know.
I was going to make that old joke about, like, the husband.
I know, and I'm derailing that because
you completely derailed that. Yeah, towards men, and that's fine. You can be sexist towards men. It's easy. I just did it.
All men just went, oh.
Did they really? I don't think they did. Anyway, we'll get back on track here.
Anyway, he said it was an oval shape, shiny and metallic, with a green light on the bottom of it. It also had 4 landing lights, which he could clearly see as it flew over his head.
So he's been attacked by a giant tablet, is that what
it's not really attacking him, it's just
being
buzzing
a dick.
It's been a dick. It's been a dick.
And this is my personal...
They're alien teenagers is what they were.
That's it. That's my personal theory. When it always comes to shit like this, when you've got aliens mutilating cows, when you've got aliens abducting people, I've always assumed it's just bored alien teenagers and it's their version of cow tipping.
And then at 7:12 p.m, radio cut off, and no one has seen or heard from Valentich since.
But he was in constant communication with... It's the Melbourne airport that he's talking to?
The Melbourne flight service.
Yeah, so he was in constant communication. It's actually quite chilling.
It cut off halfway through a sentence, I think.
Yeah, they're reporting about these strange lights. Valentich is... He seems pretty composed, though, throughout the audio footage. Footage? Not footage. Audio clip, yeah. He doesn't seem to be freaking out too much.
Well, as an alien enthusiast, if an alien was coming at you, wouldn't you be more fluttered than, oh my god, freak out?
No, if I saw a UFO and it was chasing me, I'd freak the fuck out. I wouldn't be excited. I wouldn't be like, wow, this is such an amazing thing. I can't believe this is happening to me. I'd be more like, and driving as fast as I could away from the alien.
Or flying.
You know, or well, in this case, yeah, he was flying. But yeah, I'd be, I imagine it'd be out on the highway. Look, I've done a lot of night driving. I've done more night driving than I think a lot of people do, especially because I'm a night worker. And I've never seen anything strange. I've never seen anything weird. Though we did live on a property when I lived in Tumut. Now, Tumut is a rural town. There's about 7,000 people who live there. And in Tumut, there were often people talking about seeing weird lights or seeing UFOs. You know, you could chalk up a lot of that sort of stuff to ball lightning. Though I remember my mother one night saying that it'd have to be maybe 1, 2 a.m. in the morning. And she said the entire house just filled with light. That being said, we were living like next to a highway, so I assume like a truck may have glanced its lights at the house or something like that. There's always a plausible explanation. But yeah, like there are some places in Australia where you do have really weird things going on, especially when it comes to the UFO. There's every now and again, you'll get a UFO story out of Australia.
Now, while it has nothing against the MH370 exploration, the RAAF and civilian aircraft did spend 4 days looking for him, and they also contacted any seagoing craft in the area to look for him as well. Again, they found nothing.
Which, in that particular area, you're talking about flying over an ocean, correct?
The Bass Strait.
Yeah. So there's a lot of area to cover. It's a tiny plane. It goes down in the ocean. It's going to be really, really tricky to find something that small. We're talking about a needle in a haystack. I think people think, okay, it's a plane, but, you know, you've got so many factors. How did the plane get destroyed? You know, did it hit the water and break up into 1,000 pieces? Did it explode? You know, was there anything left to find? Did it all immediately sink? Did it get picked up by ocean currents? Like, all of these things could happen. So, although it is a plane, in the grand scheme of things, it's still that needle in a haystack situation.
There was a piece found, though.
Do tell.
5 years later, in 1983, an engine cowl flap that's one of the flaps on a wing, washed up on Flinders Island, which is 550 kilometres to the east of where Valentich vanished. In July of that year, the Department of Transport concluded that the wing flap came from a Cessna 182 from amongst a certain range of serial numbers. Valentich's craft was among those numbers.
So we could make the assumption then that that was his flap from the end of the wing.
Not necessarily. A lot of things have vanished in that area.
Okay. So in that case, I assume that there was some sort of, you know, laser markings or some sort of
a serial number.
Weird extraterrestrial evidence, or was it just a regular old?
It was a flap.
It was just a flap.
It was a flap.
Nothing exciting about the flap.
Nothing reported exciting, no.
Not even radioactive?
No, not even a little bit scratched, I think. Just a flap.
So that would, like, considering there's very little damage to it, you would assume that he probably just crashed into the ocean and split to pieces.
Yeah, I'd assume so. Like, it hit the water. The wing was whole, but the screws holding the flap on have corroded or something, and it's just released it.
So there are a couple of proposed explanations for what happened to Valentich. Okay, so one of the proposed explanations, we're going to go with probably the skeptic's view on this first one. Valentich disappeared approximately 30 to 45 minutes from Cape Otway, the most southern part of Western Victoria. Now, he had more than enough fuel to make it there.
Again, he had 800 kilometres worth of fuel in his tank when he took off.
Plenty of fuel. So anything other than a fuel leak, he's going to get to his destination. Now, there were no reports of aircraft on radar that night because it's a UFO, Holly, and they have technology to avoid radar.
Oh, yeah, that whole shielding thing.
However, like, again, and this is where the field of UFO or UFOs, they call them UFOs now.
Ufology.
So in the field of ufology, will happen is that they will, so sometimes they're like, no, UFO can't be picked up by radar, but then they'll talk about the area they'll talk about the Roswell incident and they're like, yeah, our radar like knocked the UFOs out of the sky. And, they'll pull apart different things.
Well,
But
obviously that's because they learnt from the first incident, Matthew. Jesus.
Yeah, that was quite obvious. I should have thought of that. So I personally think that, yeah, if you got a UFO, it's not going to be picked on human-based radar. It shouldn't be picked up on human-based radar anyway. So the Victorian police received reports of a light plane landing near Cape Way around the time of Valentich's disappearance. So that's the suggestion. He made it, right? Like
he just vanished into the bush, never seen you again.
He drops in this bullshit report of UFOs. He does make it to where he's going. He cuts off the transmission and then he just wanders away. So in that explanation, right, someone lands, very similar aircraft, very similar time, same destination. I would make one or two assumptions here. One, that Valentich was suffering maybe from a mental illness. We know a lot more about mental illness now than we did in the 80s.
70s.
In the 70s. So in that case, he could have been having a psychotic episode. He could have been having a bit of a imaginary scenario. He lands, he's still disoriented, he gets out of his plane, he walks into the bush and gets eaten by a Yowie or a Bunyip, which we'll be talking about. They're mythological creatures in Australia. We're going to be talking about them in an upcoming episode. But that does seem plausible to me. Like, this guy has always had this paranoid fear of UFOs. He's always been afraid that UFOs are coming to get him, that they're going to be attacked by UFOs at some stage. He has this psychotic episode mid-flight, gets out, wanders into the bush, and they never find him again. So I kind of find that pretty plausible as an explanation.
All right, the second one was simply that Valentich was disoriented flying upside down. He was seeing his own lights reflected in the ocean. This does not, however, explain the reflection, quote unquote, speeding off and toying with him, because that's not how light works on water.
But again, though, he could have been making those, like, leaps. Like, oh, it looks like it's speeding up. Oh, it looks like it's toying with me when he's...
It goes up the crest of a wave and it looks like it's going around him or something like that.
Not even... we don't even have to go this far. If the dude's flying upside down and doesn't know it, then I'm not going to believe his speeding off, toying with him explanation of what the lights are doing either, because he is upside down in his own aircraft.
Mind you, at that speed, it's kind of hard to feel which way gravity is pulling you, so you're not really going to know. And it was nighttime.
His own aircraft upside down.
Whatever.
So it's like this again, is this the Homer Simpson of, pilots? Because it really seems like it very well could be, if that's one of the explanations. Now, suicide was considered, but it was crossed off with professional consultations. Why did they cross that off as a conclusion?
His dad talked to professional consultants. Police talked to professional consultants. Based on the evidence they presented, he did not seem suicidal.
No, but he could have...
He could have just gone, fuck you, fuckers, and straight in the ocean.
But he could have been flying upside down and crashed into the ocean, chasing lights that were his own reflection from his aircraft.
Well, that's one theory.
Yeah, no, I'm starting to fall into the category of this guy as a stupid. I think we may have a stupid on our hands.
Well, this one's not going to break that theory. The most recent theory came about in 2013. A review of the transcripts and other data by a retired US Air Force pilot named James McGaha, I hope they said that right, and an author, Joe Nickel, put forward the theory that Valentich was deceived by the illusion of a tilted horizon and attempted to compensate for it. This is actually something very common that happens to beginner pilots, but they usually have an instructor with them to help them fix it. Because of that illusion, he ended up in a downward spiral, think a corkscrew, otherwise known as a graveyard spiral, which he mistook for an orbiting aircraft. When you see a light of, say, a ship in the distance and you're circling, it's going to look a little bit like that. Now, the G-forces of the spiral, as he grew tighter and tighter, would have decreased fuel flow to the engine, resulting in the rough idling he reported. Now, together, the Air Force pilot and the author figured the overhead lights he reported were actually Mars, Venus, and Mercury, along with one of the brightest stars, which in said spiral would have behaved the way Valentich described the lights moving.
But he is very calm in the radio transmission. You would imagine if you're in a spiral.
Well, if you don't realize you're in a spiral because
but how
you're
can you
following
not
an illusion.
realize you're in a
You're following an
spiral?
illusion. Your gadgets aren't working because you're in the spiral. The electricity and the engine is failing.
But aren't you being thrown up into the cockpit with the G-forces? Like, aren't you?
No, it's keeping you in your seat. So all you're feeling is being pushed down.
And you're spiraling around.
But yeah, you're following your own tail.
So again,
Down into the-
the dumb explanation.
Like I said, it wasn't going to break your theory.
Like, two of these explanations so far have been Valentich is just a dum-dum.
I will leave the final one to you, Mr. Skeptic.
Okay. So, this is the more sexy of the theory. Because UFOologists, or ufologists, if you want to talk UFOs, that's the new nomenclature for,
Says 40-year-olds in their parents' basements.
you know,
Let's move on.
UFOs. So ufologists have, of course, claimed that he was abducted. There's a description of an erratic green light in the sky, which was reportedly seen by few people that night. A local plumber, Roy Manifold, apparently took photos of an object leaving the sea at speed near the Cape Otway lighthouse. They're not clear enough to identify a UFO, but UFOologists believe them, of course, because otherwise their worldview would be shattered if they didn't believe this sort of evidence.
I mean, let's be honest here. A photo of an object leaving the sea could quite as easily be an object entering the sea.
Well, that's what I was just about to say. Like, he could have actually snapped a photo of Valentich crashing into the ocean, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty plausible. I like how that's the description of this guy, like a local plumber.
That's what I found.
Local plumber, right? It's always like that. It's like local postman, local police officer, local this, local that.
Local
It's like,
home.
you know, Roy Manifold could have had dreams that were above just being a plumber. He could have had hopes and dreams.
Yeah, he probably wanted to be a ufologist. That's why he was out there taking photos of the night sky.
I mean, we're talking about the 90s. Okay, I'm more interested in what Roy Manifold was doing that night outside with a camera ready to go because, you know, we're talking about 1970s cameras here. We're not even talking about the film roll that you could easily, you know, you slot it in, you reel it up, you start clicking away, you have 32 shots on the roll of film. We're talking about, I would assume, those old school box sort of cameras.
I'm pretty sure it's closer to Polaroid era, but neither of us
Maybe.
were alive in the 70s, so
Yeah,
we don't know.
Maybe
If you know, leave a comment, talk to us, let us know, please.
Leave us a message on the Facebook page, but I would be very curious as to what cameras were like. So why is this dude out at the beach at night with a camera?
I mean, if he's down the beach, like I'd assume dolphins or whales, considering it's October, that's migrating season.
See, my mind immediately went to he was trying to like find skinny dippers or people having sex on the beach to take photos of. That's immediately
Tomato, I guess, depending on your definition
the
of
more
whale.
interesting story here is what was Roy Manifold doing on the beach that night with his box brownie camera. So yeah, look, that is the more exciting side to this story is the UFO angle. And when you hear the audio clip, which we'll play at the end of the episode for you, we'll leave you on a scary one. I can understand why the sensationalism would get you to that point. It really is a creepy clip to listen to. And the thing about this clip too is that it's not grainy, it's not distorted, it's very, very clear. It's a very nice recording. And
you can hear exactly what the command is saying, what Valentich is saying. There's a little bit of a dropout, but that was reported as being when the ship flew over him.
Yep. So it's not too bad as far as evidence goes.
I've heard a lot worse.
Oh, me too. I've heard a lot worse than that. But again, you know, this is when it comes to eyewitness accounts, and this is what they talk about now in the judicial system, is how much we can believe or listen to eyewitness testimony, because, you know, there have been many cases of two people seeing the same person, describing them completely differently. Now, we're talking about a situation at night. We're talking about strange lights in the sky. Considering Australia, 1978, there's not going to be a lot of light pollution. And he's out in the middle of the ocean. And shit can look weird when you're out. Like, I've been out camping when there's no lights at all. And you look up into the sky and it's amazing the difference. that you can see in just the skyline. Like, it almost looks like a different world. I live in the city now. I used to live in the country, and just the differences between those two locations, you would assume you're looking at a different sky.
Just remember, for those living in Australia, this is East Coast Australia in the middle of October at 7 p.m. There might be a tiny little bit of light, but there is not going to be enough to notice details.
Yeah.
So even bushes will look like bunyips coming after you.
Yeah, exactly. But that is it's kind of fun. Like, were the aliens flying around? Do they happen to see this isolated guy just cruising along and were like, well, we need another science experiment. Let's grab this guy. And they took him.
Or it was a case of an alien teenager doing their version of throwing a beer bottle at a passing car.
Could very well be. It's an interesting story. I think that someone could make a really cool movie out of it. But this is all we have because Valentich disappeared and no one heard from him again.
There's no such thing as a black box in those days, so you're not going to get any data. Even if you found it.
The last thing anyone ever heard from Valentich was the recording, and we'll never really know what happened to him. If you're a UFOologist, if you subscribe to that idea, he was abducted and never returned. It's very scary.
If you're a disaster realist like me, he hit the water and kept going.
That is the angle that I would probably approach with this as well. I mean, initially, when you played me the footage, when you started researching this, and you're like, listen to this clip. And I listened to the whole thing, and I'm like, damn, that is scary. Like, that is creepy. Like, this could be, one of the very first genuine UFO abduction cases that I listened to and I can't poke holes through. But then, on further research, we find he's UFO enthusiast. We find out that he is scared of UFO attacks, and everything sort of starts falling apart from that point. And there are also a couple of real explanations. I mean, and that's the tragic thing about this story too, is you would almost prefer that he was abducted by a UFO.
It'd make a much better ending.
Well, I mean, the other idea is that he got disorientated, crashed into the ocean, and got eaten by a shark eventually. Like, it's quite sad, really. However, continuing on with the UFO theory, you've done a little bit more research here, and that area is known for very odd occurrences. It is our own Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah, from way back in 1797 all the way up to Valentich, and I'm pretty sure there's been some recently, but thanks to the advent of GPS, I'm pretty sure they've dropped off quite a bit.
So I'll go through some of the things that you've found here. The Sydney Cove wrecked in 1797. A salvage vessel was sent after it, which was the Eliza. The Eliza also vanished. Between 1838 and 1840, 7 vessels at least were lost within the waters of the Triangle, with only 3 of the wrecks found. The HMS Sappho went down in 1858 with 100 lives lost. The Amelia J disappeared in 1920. I assume that's a boat as well?
Yep.
A military plane, an air code DH-9A, went missing while looking for the Amelia. Miss Hobart, a brand new airliner, vanished at 10:20 a.m. on the 19th of October 1934 with only a small amount of wreckage recovered. And everyone died, I assume?
All hands lost.
Everyone disappeared. Another vanished in 1935. A few WAF, that's again, Royal Australian Air Force. We're going to be talking about that a lot. Like, we talked about that in the previous episode.
Well, the RAAF is really the only airborne force we can use to find things. So.
Exactly. So we'll have to keep explaining that acronym. So a few WAF Bristol bombers vanished over the Bass Strait during World War II while running training exercises, and they probably crashed during low-altitude bombing drills. Similar accidents also happened over land. 1972, a Tiger Moth airplane disappeared over the strait on its way to protest in Canberra. And
that one was actually, they chalk it down to sabotage, but they don't know if it ended up crossing the strait and crashed in the bush or whether it fell down in the strait.
It's interesting. And the last one that we've found, of course, is today's story, which is 1978, and that's the disappearance of Valentich.
I do feel, however, I do have to explain to people what the Bass Strait Triangle actually is, so if they want to look it up on a map, they can. If you plan on flying over this area, you might want to pick a different air carrier. That is the triangle that goes from Melbourne area, Flinders Island, to King Island. That leaves about a space of maybe a couple of 100 k's down the bottom where you can actually safely pass. But yeah, there's 2 islands and Melbourne in a triangle at the top of Tasmania.
The hell is with triangles? Why is it all... like, obviously the most famous one, of course, is the Bermuda Triangle. That's where people disappear. That's just off the coast of
Cuba, Florida, all that area.
Why triangles?
Because you only need 3 points. You don't have to try and wedge in a fourth.
Is there some sort of, I don't know, mystical, magical, mythological...
Well, everyone goes on about pyramid magic.
Yeah, it's always fucking triangles and points. People love points as...
Because they want people to get the point, so they stab them with it. Shut up.
But yeah, people talk about triangle magic. They talk about, pyramid hats. It's always like the triangle has some sort of mystical resonance, some sort of magical power in our world. And, they talk about triangles being dimensional gateways, these ships.
Illuminati.
No, the Illuminati is a little bit different. The Illuminati...
The American $1 coin, $1 bill, there's a pyramid with an eye on it, and that's the Illuminati symbol.
Well, the pyramid actually means something a little bit different in that context. It is still on there, you're right, because it's a powerful magical sigil, which, a lot... If we ever get into... Because I don't know if Australia has any, quote-unquote secret societies, but if we find them, we'll talk about them.
My grandfather was a Freemason. Does that count?
It does count. The Freemasons are a bit of a secret society. So you've infiltrated...
Oh, yeah. Family ties.
Yeah, you're infiltrating us. We'll have to look into it, see if Australia has some secret societies. But the idea of the triangle, I think, appears in a lot of the old magics that all these secret societies subscribe to. And when I talk about magics, I talk about it as a symbolic thing. The people in secret societies who practice it don't see it as a symbolic thing. They see it as something that's actually powerful. So yeah, the triangle is one of those, secret, special symbols that have been passed down through a lot of different secret societies. Like you said, the Illuminati, Freemasons, the Bermuda Triangle, the pyramids, it's all about triangles, baby. So yeah, it's a bit of a shorter episode this week, but that really does wrap up Valentich. And I mean, I'll leave it to you. There's some evidence there that he was being stalked by something strange in the night.
There are 3 plausible theories for you to go with, which is the alien abduction. He landed on Otway Cape and vanished into the bush. And he dropped into the sea.
So it's up to you as to which one you want to subscribe to. Me personally, I kind of think that the UFO one does have some legs here. I mean, more so than most UFO cases. Because, they may or may not have found wreckage. He was very calm about what he was seeing. It never sounds like he's in a huge amount of trouble. And that's why the theory of him, barreling into the ocean or spiraling down, I think they're both plausible explanations. They're probably what happened, but the audio clip itself, he's very, very calm when he's talking to the flight control in Melbourne. So,
who knows?
It's one, and it's cool. We have some evidence there, which is pretty cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave you with that clip, and hopefully it's going to give you nightmares tonight if you're listening to it. Make sure you're sitting in a dark room and you've got your earplugs in.
Loud.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun. We're going to play that in a second, but before we do, don't forget to check us out on our social media. You can find us on Twitter at Modern Meltdown. We've got our Facebook page, as well as our Facebook pages for our other podcasts, The TV Breakdown and Beyond the Words. You can find us on Instagram. It's usually one of the first places that I'll let you know that new episodes are up, as well as our home on the web, themodernmeltdown.com. Like I said, we've got some other podcasts on the Modern Meltdown Network. If you're interested in listening to 3 arseholes talk about their favorite TV shows or their least favorite TV shows each week, join me, my co-host Tommy Din, and Lindsay Soul on the TV Breakdown. Those episodes usually go for a long time, but they're worth it if you want to have someone else cement your views on a television show. Holly, you host Beyond the Words.
Yes, if you're a beginner writer, if you want some ideas, if you don't know where to start, head on over, download Beyond the Words. Each week we go through a different aspect of writing and publishing a book, and hopefully by the end you'll have learned something.
And once a week, I also find what I consider to be the most interesting story of the week, and I do an episode on that, and that's on The Modern Meltdown. Also, if you want to follow us on Twitch, myself and Lindsay Soul, we have a show every Tuesday called PC Master Race vs. The Filthy Casual, where Lindsay introduces me to a new game that I've never played before. I attempt to play it, and Lindsay offers some history on the game that we're playing. So you can check that out on Twitch as well. Other than that, thank you very much for joining us for another episode of Weird Crap in Australia. I've been your host, Matthew Soul, once again joined by my co-host, Holly Hunt.
Yes, I'm full of nothing right now.
When we do T-shirts, that's what it's going to be, your face.
I'm full of nothing right now.
I've got nothing. So enjoy the clip coming up. This is the last audio from Valentich before he disappeared, never to be found again.
This is Delta Sierra Juliet. Is there any known traffic below 5,000 feet? No known traffic. Seems to be a large aircraft below 5,000 feet. What type of aircraft is it? I cannot confirm. It's four bright, seems to me like landing lights. The aircraft has just passed over me at least 1,000 feet above. Is there any Air Force aircraft in the vicinity? No known aircraft in the vicinity. Seems to be playing some sort of game. He's flying over me. Delta Sierra Juliet, it's not an aircraft, it's... Can you describe the aircraft? As it's flying past, it's a long shape. Cannot identify it. It has such speed. It's before me right now, Melbourne. How large would the object be? Seems like it's stationary. What it's doing right now is orbiting. The thing is just orbiting on top of me. It's also got a green light and a sort of metallic, like, it's shiny on the outside. It's just vanished. That strange aircraft's hovering on top of me again. It's hovering and it's not an aircraft.
The Weird Crap in Australia podcast is produced by Holly and Matthew Soul for The Modern Meltdown. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please rate and review on your favourite podcatching app.